Hey Chamber friends, in this video you can listen to my chat with Taylor with the Haywood County Chamber of Commerce in North Carolina and even look over my shoulder as I dive into the WordPress backend of my website. As you're listening, please leave any questions you might have in the comments below as I do want to do more SEO videos in the future. And for those of you that don't know, SEO stands for Search Engine Optimization. Basically, I just want our website to perform better and to show up for certain things. And then you can also check out the description box for resources that I mentioned in this video. Well, do you want to start with the questions and then I'll...
Sure. So I don't know what you use for your website. I kind of want to hear the value you think of readability and SEO scores, and if you think they impact your site traffic. And then kind of in addition to that, do you ever feel the need to adjust people's words to improve the scores in their own writing? Because I've kind of run into that and I'm like, I could improve these scores, but I don't really want to dumb down their writing for a readability score.
Right.
And then also shifting a little bit to Facebook, we are a smaller chamber over here and don't really have a lot of funds to boost posts.
Right.
But I see the huge difference it makes. And just if there is a way around that or different tactics, just with limited funds, how would you go about improving, besides consistency and that kind of stuff?
So I'll start with readability and SEO scores. So I'm going to venture to say you're actually already ahead of a lot of us, which is cool. Well, because most people won't spend the time to look at it, which is okay for 90% of your stuff. And that's actually what I'm going to say. Most chambers are worried about time because you have limited staff and all of the projects. So if it's a post you really want to do well, then yes, it's probably worth looking at and editing. A lot of posts that I receive, I know we were talking about guest post, or I get the Frank Kinney's content marketing bundle. A lot of those, I just kind of go, bloop, here it is.
Yeah.
And I don't really worry about readability for a lot of those unless it's just a tiny pet peeve. I make weird little changes nobody cares about. But if it's truly something you want to rank for, if it was how to start a business in Little River, South Carolina, that is something I would really want to rank for. And I will spend all of the time to edit those and work on the readability and the SEO scores. And then for boosting posts, kind of same thing. If you're worried about the money, which again, we can all start with $5, but consider what you're boosting and why. So I wouldn't boost an engagement bait post because who cares? It's nice to see the numbers, but who cares? But maybe you're going to boost one of your blog posts that you're now prioritizing. And maybe at the end of it, it's got a really good call to action for getting potential members to either subscribe to learn more about the chamber or to join. So maybe that post might be worth the $5.
Gotcha.
And that's more of where my brain kind of goes with those.
Yeah. So kind of being specific about which you put money behind because some things aren't as imperative. And sometimes the weird stuff does well. Right? And then you're this important thing that I spent so much time on, you're okay.
Every time. It kills me. Just it kills me.
So in regards to the insights question, so I'm noticing it's weird, not weird, but you have a good week and it'll still be you're down 13%. Does this affect if you are going down for a week by week basis and it's a little inconsistent, does this affect how many people have access to your page?
I don't know for sure because I'm not that deep into it, but personally, I kind of worry just about the more recent few posts. So I think if my last post really bombed, I would guess that my next post is not going to be shared to many people unless it immediately starts to do really well. I think Facebook will be we'll see. Okay, no, go away.
I think the algorithms are very complicated and it's a new learning process for me. And with my personal Facebook page is pretty consistent. And with the business page, it's much different.
Mm-hmm. Well, for the Facebook's limiting the reach for all pages versus personal pages. So that's normal for everybody.
So I've read that the algorithm, it's better to post, I don't know if this is true, and kind of what I'm asking is, let's say you post something on Instagram and share it to Facebook. Is it better to repost it yourself if you have the time to post it through Facebook?
So I know what you're talking about, and I've heard other people say that those are rumors.
Okay.
But what could be a bigger difference is, and I know Norma Davey has really spoken to this if you follow her at all. If you're posting to Instagram and you have like 30 tags or hashtags are more acceptable on Instagram than they are Facebook. Yeah. So she says to repost, but it's because you're kind of rewriting your post or tweaking it just a little bit to be more appropriate for Facebook.
Specific platforms.
Right. So in that respect, it is better to repost manually because you're editing it down a little bit or changing it up a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm just lazy and I don't always do it because priorities.
Yeah, I just it's so much easier, but I don't want to make it seem like I'm doing the easier option if there is a better option. Yeah. And sometimes I do have time, so it is.
Well, that's where too. If you have the time, then yeah, go for it. Do the better thing. But that's where I'm I kind of pick and choose. So I'm okay,
pick and choose your battles.
Don't worry about it. But 20% of the time, if I have time or if it's more important, I'm okay, let's do this right.
Gotcha. Also, how did you get your background? What program do you use for
it's called OBS, and I'll send you the YouTube link because I actually did a video for it.
Oh, awesome.
Because I do it because even though we're in Zoom, I can do this in Blitzer and Remo and the other things that are not, that don't have that virtual background enabled. And that's also how I get this thing.
Yes.
I could actually also.
For me, I don't know if you know this. I'm sure you do. They're backwards for me.
Oh, are they? Oh, sorry.
There you go.
I had a Blitzer the other day, and so it's different in Zoom and in Blitzer for me. It's weird. There's but it's a one button.
I was I don't know if I should point this out or not. Always do a call out for sure.
Yeah, no, I'm one of those. I appreciate it. And then I know we were chatting about SEO. Do you want me to show you kind of what I do in my WordPress?
Yes.
Okay. The first thing I actually wanted to point out is you use Yoast SEO, right?
Yes.
So that's a plugin. Have you looked at Twitter cards yet?
No.
Okay. It's in Yoast, and basically on the left-hand side this is the Yoast SEO plugin. Click on social in general, go through all of these tabs and fill them out. And you see where I've got Facebook Open Graph enabled and Twitter Open Graph enabled. That actually makes a difference when you see links shared on Facebook and Twitter and some have a really big image and then other ones have nothing. This is what it's from. So this is how you enable it. Okay. So that was my I don't do a lot of technical SEO, but that one's my favorite. And then so when you're filling out Yoast SEO, and you can really just Google how to set up Yoast SEO, and they'll make a lot of really good recommendations. That's what I do for every new plugin I get. But somewhere in here, there'll be a thing for sitemap, and that actually is really important for Google and Google crawling your website. Oh, here it is. It says XML sitemaps, and literally all you have to do is click on. So Yoast makes it so easy. Whereas if we didn't have that, I don't know. I just wouldn't even do it because it would be so complicated. And then the same for Webmaster Tools verification. You can say I've only got Google set up, but hypothetically, you should do all of them. And again, that helps with, I don't know if you know anything about Google Search Console, but again, that's more of the slightly technical side, and it can tell you when things are wrong. I'm not going to deep dive into it. Don't worry. I just figured I'll show you what my dashboard looks like. Okay, so this kind of gives me performance. I'm showing up for web search clicks. These would be important things.
Now, what is the difference between this and Google Analytics?
So analytics is more what I call interesting data. Whereas Google Search Console will tell me if something is wrong with my website.
Okay.
It's hey girl, this ain't working.
Okay.
And so this, I kind of set it up. And once I set it up, I made sure there was no really serious errors. And I just don't remember where that's at. So just kind of look up how to set up Google Search Console and just follow the basic steps that you can understand. And that's it. And one of them will be a thing to okay, oh, I found a button for security issues. Okay, I have no issues, so I'm good.
Okay.
But I don't look at a lot of performance because, like you said, I have Google Analytics. So under coverage, again, the errors, I'm looking for errors. That's what I use it for. But it ties together, and it kind of helps Google better understand what is on your site. That's especially why that one-click sitemap on button is important, because that will help your rankings in Google because it knows what you have. So that's all I understand about technical SEO.
Yeah.
And even then, like I follow tutorials as I go. That's all I do. And so for creating a post, so this was one from probably Frank's marketing package. So kind of in order. So for his, I don't worry about it, but maybe for your guest post or ones you write, I would actually look at your headline because your headline is an important part of on-page SEO. My favorite tool is called coschedule.com, and then look for their headline analyzer.
Okay.
And it's free and it's amazing.
Yeah. So even like WordPress is nitpicky about your headline and like it being a certain link. So like I shouldn't focus on these like weird like links of headlines and stuff. If I have like a good headline, then
I think so, because this tool actually grades my headlines. And I think, if it was really long, it's actually just going to go down because nobody's going to read it. And so this lets me really craft it. Generally, honestly, I'll take something in the 60s that's yellow, but if you can get into the 70s or green, it's doing really well. So it's going to help you kind of rank on Google, but it's also going to help people want to click on it.
Okay.
And then more people read it, which is what you want.
Yes.
And then internal links also help. So after you've actually already written your post or you've acquired your post, I like to reread it and say, okay, do I have any internal links I could click through? So this one was submitted to us from, again, that content marketing bundle, but it's talking about savings. So I was like, okay, well, this is where I will link to the savings programs because I have a web page for it. A lot of times I will link to another blog post that's just really relevant. And I will just do this for as many relevant links that I have. Like I don't have like a set limit. And then if you ever go back and update your post, that's another good thing you can look for to update your content to add those new ones.
And also, what exactly I can't really wrap my head around what outbound links are.
Basically, outbound links is when you're leaving your website. So internal links is they're staying on my chamber website, and outbound is they're going somewhere else. So maybe they clicked on my member's website, or maybe I just linked to a really good article and they left and went there.
Okay, that makes a lot more sense. So because I thought I was like, I don't have any outbound links. Like all of them are just, but actually I definitely do. And I just didn't realize the definition difference.
Right. That's all it is. They're not too big a deal. Usually you want internal links because you want people to stay on your website. But obviously if it's relevant, then you would use an outbound. And then just with it, when you click on a link, again, I have WordPress and I just use the Gutenberg. I don't use Elementor or the other things, which are great. I just don't need them. When I click on a link, I can actually just one button, open a new tab.
Oh, gotcha.
Anytime a link goes off of your website, always open it in a new tab.
That's good. I haven't been doing that.
Okay. And that's one of those, like I kind of, as I'm like putting stuff or copying the article into WordPress, that's one of my just things that I do.
Yeah.
Like that doesn't even make it to my checklist because it's so ingrained in me.
Automatically or like, gotta do this.
And then no follow, just so you know. Basically, if somebody paid you for a backlink, I'm sure you get the scamming emails. So it's like, hey, like my client would love to submit a backlink to your website, or here's this. If you ever allow somebody to pay you, you are supposed to do sponsored and no follow. You won't know a difference, but it affects like back end like Google stuff most of us normal people know nothing about. If you get into like domain authority and backlinks and stuff, Google's kind of aware that, okay, you have these links, but the ones that are follow are weighted higher because you organically just chose to link to them. Whereas the no follow are ranked a little bit lower or just not even counted really. They're aware of it, but like they don't count it.
Okay.
And like personally, don't worry about that too much. It's on the thing. So I just figured I'd talk about it.
Yeah.
But like most of my members wouldn't know it, and that's fine. That's personal choice. Oh, and then same thing with internally. So at the end of your blog post, generally you want to tell people what to do. So yeah, maybe they clicked on these other links and they're doing other things. But if they didn't, at the end, you want to have some sort of call to action. So it might be getting them onto your email list. So you could, a lead magnet would be perfect right here. And then if I don't have a lead magnet, then I actually just link to another blog post. And that's what this is I just put my featured image and I just kind of put next and like, here's the next relevant article for you because I want them to do something with me generally.
Yeah.
As you can see, most of mine needs improvement. But again, that's because I haven't taken the time to go set those keywords that I feel like you're doing. Again, if it's one that I want to rank for, like those little river businesses, yeah. But a lot of times I'm
So
not.
what exactly are keywords?
So a keyword can actually be multiple words. So business is a keyword, but little river businesses is also a keyword.
Okay.
And keywords are generally like if somebody's searching for that term, you want to show up for it. And that's really the importance of keywords. And they're saying key phrase, it's pretty much the same thing.
Yeah.
And they kind of tell you, okay, put it in your first paragraph, put it in your meta description, and put it in your slug. Do you know what a slug is?
I do not. I've been
Okay.
like playing with it, but I don't exactly.
That's fine. So you can see this is the website I'm at right now. Everything after .com or .org is the slug.
Okay.
And so you can actually optimize those too. So I don't go back and optimize old posts for the slug.
Okay.
Like I don't mess with that because that would affect, like if I had shared it on Facebook, well, that page no longer exists now. But for new ones, I tend to do it. So you can see my title was 7 Reasons the Chamber of Commerce is Not Just for Boomers. And my slug, I edited down to be less than 5 words and included at least some of the keywords out of that title. So chamber and boomers for me. And it's usually not as an exact of a match as your keyword because for slugs, it's also actually a best practice to delete the little words like a, is, not, the, because who cares? And so that doesn't make a huge impact, but sometimes it can. Because if nothing else, you just want it to be like, okay, yes, this page is relevant. As opposed to if this was like a bunch of numbers, that would be sketchy AF. Yeah. Again, we have WordPress. So if you go to settings, permalinks, I bet it's in there. Yeah. So we kind of talked about these where I was like, basically don't choose P equals 1, 2, 3. Because that would just be post number. And again, if you just have that post name somewhere in it, that's much more credible. And it's also easier for the robots to read. But it's also just as a person, I trust that site a little bit more. I personally, I hate dates in it because who cares?
Our chamber does dates. And I heard you say that. And I was like, I just feel like this would be a lot to fix. But
and that's, that's different. I was starting from scratch. So I was able just to be like, nope, we're doing this. That can make a difference because if you were going to go back and fix it, you would have to set up a redirect for all of your links that you've already. Yeah, I know you don't want to do that. It's fine. It's fine. But you can still change the categories, which would be under posts and categories. Again, this is also where I don't like dates. Like nobody's going to go click on January 2020 because we don't care. But I might click on business tips and resources and see what articles are in there. And so that won't affect your links or anything weird in a bad way.
Do you create tags for all of your blogs?
I don't, but it's because I'm lazy.
Do you think it would be helpful? Or is it just?
It can. So the best practice is like a category would be like a bigger topic and then tags would follow underneath those. Okay. So really, I don't need social media as a category. I could probably do that as a tag. But if I have social media as a category, I might make my tags Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and this and that.
The things with like subcategory, like you can narrow it down from your category.
Right. And I can show you, I've got some on my personal one. My categories are like email marketing, social media, events, membership. But then my tags, like I was saying, like apps, automation, board members, content, Google Analytics, like really specific. So they're not as applicable to quite as many things, but it's still kind of telling, I don't know, I'm calling it Google, but it's probably just like internet robots that these pages are relevant to each other. And that can be really good. And then sometimes, depending on what your stuff is like, so like these are actually all of the tags on my personal blog. Okay. I can click on newsletter and it will actually show me all of those relevant posts.
Oh, okay.
But I don't want this many categories for 100% of people to look at. I narrow it down to like 10, and that's probably a little much, but I am who I am.
But still.
But if they really wanted to deep dive into a specific topic, they could do that. And I can also link to that tag if I want to.
Okay.
But that's just where for the chamber, I haven't worried about it as much because I'm just like, here's business tips, go.
Yeah.
So personal preference, I don't know. And then meta description. So I think, meta description, metadata. when you search for something, this right here is that meta description.
Okay.
So a real person is going to read that, and you're
So
trying.
put a good bit of focus in that.
Yeah, you want to basically your goal with that is to convince them to click on this to read your post.
Mm-hmm.
So I won't give everything away, and you can even tease a little bit. I'm obviously going to change that, but for the purposes of this and like not wasting your time, Chamber of Commerce, I should probably change old white men to boomers to be, again, I kind of want that keyword in there a little bit. But at the end of it, I can be like, here's how. And people might think it cut off, or they might just naturally say, oh, well, I should click on it to read more. I have to tell them per se. I don't always do that, but sometimes I do if I kind of like, if I'm having trouble turning it in. Sometimes I'll like the first tip or the first little thing, but you get the point. And then I actually, whatever I put, and this is again the Yoast SEO plugin, I will copy and I will go to the right-hand side and find excerpt and I put it there.
Okay.
And so for me, those are the same thing.
Gotcha.
And then the excerpt is a little bit more, it lives on your site. Okay, so this is my blog. And the way I've got it set up is it shows the title, my featured image, and then the excerpt. So
Okay.
I don't want the whole big long post showing up because I want them to choose a post to go to. So again, a real person is reading that.
Okay.
And then I know you were talking about SEO analysis. So let's see.
Yes.
Text length, I don't worry about too much. I kind of like, okay, I just want a person to read it and whatever that means for length or quality of words. I do think, yeah, get rid of some big words unless it's really topical, like Facebook Creator Studio is a little bit niche, but maybe I'm specifically talking about that.
Gotcha.
So I would still use it.
Sometimes it'll like give me a percentage of like how readable it is, and it'll be like, this is of a college student level. But in my head, I'm like, I feel like the people who are reading are educated, but I don't want it and like dumb down the writing. But also I do want it to be accessible.
Well, here's the thing. Watching this thing last night, and it was like this selling with stories. And your brain, the first thing you want to do is survive. And the second thing your brain wants to do is conserve calories. If as a person, if we have to spend too much effort into thinking and translating big words and like processing, we zone out and we stop paying attention.
Yeah.
So personally, I don't think dumbing down is a thing. I think that just makes it easier to consume.
Okay.
That's how I think about that.
And like, it's just a lot of like changing my writing style, because 20 words for a sentence for me seems like really small. But like in this, it's like, don't use commas, make them shorter, separate your sentences. And it's just a different way of thinking that I have to kind of adapt to.
I'm going to pick on Brandon and hopefully he'll forgive me. So my guest post that's going out next week, Brandon with the Chamber Chat podcast wrote it, and it's good. Don't get me wrong. Love the content, but this is what he sent me. So like big paragraph.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Yes.
Big paragraph. And I didn't change any words. All I did was like, here's an enter button and here's an enter button. Let me repeat the title really big.
A paragraph.
Here's a few more enters. That's all I did. And that is, such a little change. But like, which one are you more likely to read? Because even for that one, those are.
Yes. And do you use a lot of stock images for stuff like that?
These are probably all stock images. On my personal one, I even use Giphy, but that's, again, you have to go for the personality that's okay to match. I've used a few GIFs in the Chamber one, but obviously I'm a little more careful.
Yeah.
If it's about my area, then no. But even like, so this was actually a vlogger, we paid him and he did this video. And then I took screenshots of his video. I'm like, okay, here are the screenshots. And then I just typed out what he talked about.
Got it.
Staycation. Okay, so I would have written this one. This is a picture I took. This is definitely a cell phone picture. Like this was their pictures, but I made a collage in Canva.
Okay.
So like cell phone pictures, 100% just to break up. So I think this is good where it's just breaking it up a little. I could probably make those smaller and add in more text, but whatever. So for this one, I threw in a map. You can add in bullet points to break up. It's still text, but visually it's a little different.
So kind of focusing on format sometimes when things seem to be lengthy or not as interesting.
Right. And then another one I did, so his was same thing, very texty, but I didn't really have any solutions. If you Google click to tweet, that's what this is. So even though it's text, visually it's a little bit different. And when people click on it, they will actually it pre-fills out a tweet. So I don't do that for every post, but if it's one that maybe if you have like a guest speaker or you think people would tweet about it, I usually will pre-fill a good quote or takeaway that I like. And then sometimes I pull YouTube videos. I don't know this girl. I just like her YouTube channel and it was relevant to what he was talking about. So I was like, well, here's a random video to break up the text.
Okay.
And if you have videos, yes, definitely use yours. And that's a really good way to increase your YouTube numbers, which is another thing I'm working on, and still be relevant. Or right now, I'm getting some sponsored by an insurance company. So when I have a blog post, again, that's just additional exposure for them. And then it also helps your analytics in that if people watch any part of the video, it will increase their average time on page, which tells Google that people like your website. So yeah, just look for different ways to break it up. And then even, here's another internal link where I just kind of visually, I just make it a little bit different. I'm like, here's something relevant, but you
So
can
recommended. That's a good, okay.
Yeah, like it doesn't have to be a crazy ad or anything. I kind of ramble on, but this is another plugin I have. It's called Contextual Related Posts. I like it because I don't have to put effort into it when I don't want to. And at the bottom of your blog post, it will pick however many number of posts that you want. So I've set it to 3, and it will say, hey, related posts, and it will just automatically pick them for me. And I can tell it, hey, actually use this one. Like I definitely want this one promoted on this page. And I can even exclude blog posts from showing up in there. But if you're not having time for this or you just want more like I do.
So for the one in like the middle that it's like related post and has a link, is that just a manual, like you typed out and then put the link in it?
Yep, that's just a paragraph box. And then I typed it out. I put a link and I just made it italic to make it visually a little bit different. So it didn't have to be fancy.
Gotcha.
And then since we were talking about SEO too, something that is just kind of good to know, even if you don't do it, so this text is the stuff that's the link. The page I link to will rank a little bit better for the words I've highlighted. So this is more beneficial for that page than if I said click here. Because click here means like anything. So that's just an interesting tip that I like to have in the back of my mind. So using your name, that's fine. So like if I was going to promote a member, I would highlight their name as opposed to click here to learn more. I don't know. There's that. But even with it, we were talking about, cornerstone content just makes it basically harder for you to reach your goals in here. But again, that's better for, how to start a business in Little River versus joining the chamber or how to start a Facebook page. Because I'm not going to beat every internet company about starting a Facebook page. So I don't care. Just while I'm on here for advanced, not showing in post results is good for like secret pages. So sometimes I do that for opt-in pages, or if you were to make like a virtual swag bag page or page that you only want to show to event attendees, just turning this to no will make it not show up in Google if people were searching for things. That's random. Canonical, I never can pronounce it, but that's like if you have 2 pages that are basically like all of the same content and page, but maybe you just tweaked them a little bit and you serve them to you still serve both of them to real people. You can tell Google to, hey, only rank this page though. And so sometimes if I have a blog post that maybe a member already has on their page, but then they're also submitting it to my site, I can actually give them meta credit or like Google credit by putting their original link on their website in here. Again, most people don't know or bother with that. That's just we're looking at it. So I'm still looking for the reading. Oh, here we go. So I like the eyeballs because it just highlights. I can't find it, but anytime you see this eyeball, I just like to click it because it'll highlight. And I know it's told me before, like when you're talking about the reading, it'll tell me like, hey, you have like multiple sentences that all start with the same row. Like, better.
And then like I discovered the eyeball like later after like frustrations and was like, oh, this is so much easier now. Like when it points out exactly where it is.
Right. So, and I honestly, whenever I am looking at those, I will actually just kind of look at it and be like, okay, did I have a reason? No. Okay, then I don't care and I ignore it.
Yeah.
And I have some that will stay yellow because that's the way I want that post. Now, if it seems reasonable, like, okay, I could change this word and like maybe find a synonym, change it up a little bit, I'll do those. We talked about permalink, which is your slug. You can change it in Yoast or over here. We talked about categories and tags. All right, so do you know what a featured image is?
Yes.
Cool. So do that. But my tip is before you add it into WordPress is to make the file size smaller. So if you use a site like Tiny PNG, you actually would upload the image that you made to it. Here's a random image that I made in Canva or Photoshop, and it made it 25% smaller. And so
Awesome.
yeah. So that's all it is. It looks the same. Visually, there's no difference, but
That'll
it's
be really good for our newsletter too, because sometimes I do run into that where like the file is too big for constant contact. So
right. So it helps with that, but it also helps with more technical. It's on page SEO, but it's also a little bit more technical in that respect because it's helping your site speed. Because if you have a bunch of images and they all take a while to load, people click away or whatever. So that I actually do that for every image I add to our website now.
Okay.
And then also, again, with Yoast SEO, when I add my featured image, I go over to social and I also add the same for Facebook image and Twitter image. I think for the most part, I don't have to sometimes, but I feel like every once in a while, the featured image didn't actually show in the post. So it's kind of like a repetitive task, but I feel better doing it. And then discussion, I only allow comments on some posts, basically, if I want people to comment, because here we go. I only have 13 comments. That's not bad for us, but they are all spam. This is why I randomly messaged you that one day. I was like, also, use the spam thing. Because I was like, oh my God. Like, I've got 124 in the trash. Like, it's ridiculous. And it's easy. I can just go, okay, these are spam. And the ones that are orange are not public yet. I have to approve them. But I think that's most of my on-page SEO title tags. Keyword.
That was extremely helpful.
Okay, cool. I'm like, I feel like that was everything.
Yeah, no, for sure. I appreciate you taking time to speak with me.
Oh, definitely. Were there anything else?
Okay. Yes, I just want to say I appreciate this. I took some notes and I'm definitely going to go back and look at what we've been doing because it's very helpful information, especially since I'm kind of trying to navigate this on my own.
Right.
So
and that's where I'm like, everybody is trying to do their own. It's
exhausting. Yeah. So I really appreciate it. And I hope you have a good afternoon.
You too. I actually had one other random tip for you. If you get to it, you don't have to do it, but I use Airtable and I've started like a blog library and these are all of our published posts. So title URL. If you plan to, even if you eventually delegate or ever want to go back and update posts, I use that so I can go update the oldest ones. This is what I use as my checklist. I was telling you, like, okay, make sure you do your featured image, do this. And this is where I go click. I think my newer ones are down here. But I also put in, so topics are good for me. And then if you go into start doing Facebook ads, you can add those to custom audiences. So like I will add most of these. I have like a business tips custom audience so that people that are reading business articles will get business related ads. And then I also just have a text column for seasonal because I do a lot of evergreen posting. But then when I don't, if I say, oh, right now it's January, so I would go look for anything that says winter or February. And then I just know, okay, these are topical blog posts for me to share.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So that's more kind of why I wanted to share. Like, oh yeah.
That's my tidbit.
Okay. Sorry. That's it. I promise.